Everyone, this is Aaron. I hope you're enjoying the summer of Aaron's version of Unscripted. I'm remastering and putting out episodes that I think you might have missed. Today, I'm putting out the episode with my good friend, T.C. Stallings. T.C. Stallings has been awesome for my family. He's been awesome in movies. You've seen him in Courageous, War Room. He had a huge role in War Room. He's done a ton of things. His story is incredible. His testimony is incredible. His faith is incredible, and you do not want to miss this next half hour. I promise you, you don't want to miss it. I am such a big fan of T.C. Stallings, not because he grew up in Bedford where I did, not because he's from the 216, but because he's a man of faith, he's a man of character, and he's done some incredible things, and he's let the Lord lead him where he is today. I'm so proud of you, T.C. I hope you all enjoy this. Thanks for listening to Aaron's version of Unscripted this summer.
Welcome back to Unscripted from my studios here in Old Hilliard. And man, we just put this together in like the last, hour, 2 hours. But at the end of the day, man, my guest, he is from the 216. And if anybody knows me, knows my heart, knows my passion, knows my tattoo, it is from the 216, and it's from Bedford specifically. And so when I just saw in my guy's profile that he's from Bedford, so all right, let's just start here. To my guest, where do you go when you want to get live?
Yeah, BI, baby.
BI, man. How you introduce So what? I'm sorry. All right. We got a time constraint, man. Who's my guest? Please introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, well, my name is T.C. Stallings, and those, that are familiar with me, know I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, grew up in Bedford. They'll probably be calling me Tony. They're like, that's Tony Stallings, and that's what the T stands for. The C is my middle name. But yeah, grew up in Bedford, and I graduated from Bedford High School in 96. My goal was always to play pro ball. I got a chance to do that. But in 2008, the Lord shifted my passions to acting. I answered that call and been obedient ever since. And, went out to Hollywood with the goal of just making sure that when I went out there, I did it the Lord's way, never compromising myself and getting dirty or anything like that. And in 2015, woke up one day, was in the #1 movie in America. And, that's the rest is history, but it all started, like you said, in the 216, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and had a mom who was, doing the best she could, but, we didn't have a lot, and struggled and everything. And for us, Bedford was a come up, from inner city Cleveland where I lived. And so I spent my final years there. And like I said, man, Bedford, the city of Bedford and Bedford High School pretty much changed my life. I'm sure we can get into that, but I just want to throw that out there. They really did.
Same. There's a country song that talks about the house that built me, and Woodrow Avenue built me. And I react to things. I do everything. I make decisions based on 83 Woodrow Avenue in Bedford, Ohio, man. That's just what built me. But I want to get this out right away. So how this all happened today is I have seen you. I've seen you in Courageous. I've seen you in the movie War Room. I've seen you in a movie that was amazing so go back in history, you'll find a movie called My Brother's Keeper, where I interviewed their director. Amazing film. And honestly, one of my favorite songs ever is the one that was used in that film called I Want to Teach You. It was so good, man. That song. Oof. Okay. But today I interviewed the director of a brand new movie called No Vacancy, which comes out May 9th. And that led me to your profile where I realized you grew up in the 216. So Let's talk about No Vacancy first and foremost, because that's pressing today. So No Vacancy, can you talk about the film?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because it's one of those stories that there's 3 or 4 different storylines that come together. Usually in these films, they're fiction. They're just really cleverly written and they're great to watch, but it's just pure entertainment, like fiction. It's not true. And then you make their stories intersect. Whereas this is a true story, 100% true story about a church down in Leesburg, Florida, who decided that they wanted to take care of the homeless and hungry and drug-afflicted folks in their neighborhood. But the city didn't want them to do it because the church's method was going to be to buy a large motel, turn it into a homeless shelter. And the way they were looking at it, they was like, look, you feed one stray cat, you're going to get 30 of them. So they were worried about property value and all this other stuff. So the pastor of that church, the backdrop for this film centers around his efforts to get this motel. Meanwhile, you got my character. I play a character by the name of Cecil Johnson, who is basically one of those people, strung out, homeless, depressed, drug addicted, just want to live it, just want to end it all. He don't even want to live no more. And, you know, I encounter this church and my life can like pretty much gets turned around. And it's just the way that it happens that it's just crazy how this church intersects with this homeless guy. But then you got this third storyline as a reporter who got demoted from Orlando Sentinel, the big paper, to come do this little tiny story about this church who's trying to get this motel. And her story ends up bringing so much light to it that like a lot of people in the state starts to work with the church, which in turn helps my character. And then that's how you get the backdrop for the whole thing. So my whole thing in this is I'm playing a real person. And he became the first Black pastor at this church down in Florida. But the transformation that I had to make was just insane. Like, you will not recognize me when you see this, which is the challenge that I wanted, to play a real person, tell a real story, and put drug addiction on the screen and homelessness, and just to display all of that in a real authentic way. But that's the backdrop for No Vacancy. And it's going to inspire some folks, man. You will not look at homeless people and drug addicted people and you won't look at them the same way. You'll actually start to think like, man, maybe I can do something. Maybe I should do something. And the film shows you what can happen if you should make that decision to look after what the Bible terms as the least of these, man, and not just walking by them or throwing burgers at them. You know, so that is a great, true story. And I can't wait for everybody to check that thing out.
And I'm going to tell you, so I saw you in My Brother's Keeper. That's right? It's called My Brother's Keeper, right? Man, and you are like, I was like, is that Dwight Howard? Because, you know, I think everybody knows Dwight Howard's pretty well put together. And I got to say, man, you're pretty well put together.
Oh, man.
You know, and I think they hit it in this film because you were a homeless, strung out guy. So I think, you know, again, just you know, haven't seen the films before. And again, I didn't even know you were from Bedford, man. I like, it was just my respect of you as an actor.
Yeah.
I noticed that they probably covered that up because you're a pretty put together guy, and most homeless people are not as put together as you are.
Yeah, we had to. So the whole thing was, I didn't want to lose a ton of weight because I'm on a TV show called Vindication, and I play a detective. And we were filming like right after that too. So that would have been really hard to kind of get really, really thin. And then, so what we did was I made sure not to bulk up anymore or anything like that. But because I knew 90 days out that I was going to have to get into this, actually 120 days out. So what we decided to do was like all throughout there, man, my clothes were like 3X, you know, right. Really, really big clothes. Yeah. And we always kind of just chose like outfits that would make me look a lot thinner than what I really am. And then they did a great job with the makeup, man. And I didn't like cut my hair or shave my face for like the whole 90 days to get everything. So all that hair and those big clothes just make me look real small. And then honestly, it was a certain way that I had to walk and carry myself, which people think that's easy. You have to do some research, man, or you will either overplay it or underdo it. And I'm just like, how do they move when they're going through withdrawal and their body is not healthy? And because I'm the exact opposite of me. So I had to do some research. And so the way you see me walking and moving and twitching and kind of, you know, all of that stuff was just researched to be as authentic as possible. So that all went into the illusion of me being strung out, homeless, haven't eaten, because I'm used to being right mind. And so that's what goes into the portrayal. But I welcome the challenge. That's what you want as an actor, is a film and a role that challenging.
And you nailed it because, you know, at one point I remember you got up out of a chair and I was like, I wonder if his back's hurting. Because, you know, to your point, that physical, like, right? Like you got up out of a chair and left a meeting and I was like, you know, he walks like his back's hurting because I'm a guy that has back pain. So when you know, and I don't know if that was intentional. I assume it was based on what you just said, like, you know, all of it, man. Yeah. All right. So No Vacancy, and I'm not promoting my own podcast, but please look at the earliest episode with the director. We go more into depth, but let's talk about how do you go from Bedford, Ohio and Louisville to Hollywood? Like, what was that journey, man? Because I know we got short time. So here's the thing: you got to come back. You got to come back for like an hour episode because we got a lot to unpack. But let's do the Cliff Notes version. How do you go from Bedford to Louisville to Hollywood?
Rush. You picked a great time for this. I know it was impromptu, man, but I'm in this booth right here doing all these interviews, and so I didn't have to go nowhere, man. So I'm with you. And like I said, man, Bedford has a special place in my heart, man. So I'm really cool to be able to talk about this stuff. But yeah, the dream started, man. The journey started. I'm 12 years old. And I'm walking past, at the time, what you would call Cleveland Municipal Stadium. You know, not First Bedford, Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
That's right.
12 years old, and I hear a game going on. And we were picking up my stepfather at the time, because I didn't grow up with my real dad. So my stepfather was picking him up from work downtown at John Carroll University, where he worked. And I could hear a game going, and, you know, I'm playing ball, and I'm just like, I would love to go and see a game, but I knew I'd never be able to afford to. And I just remember saying to myself, you know what? Forget trying to go see one. I'm gonna play in there. And that's how my dream started. And so I started playing football at that point. Barry Sanders was my hero. I wore number 20, playing Muni League football, you know, for the city of Warrensville Bobcat. You know, so I'm playing, you know, so we're playing against Power 5, you know, Paul Brothers, all them different Muni League football teams. And so that's where it started for me. And then, you know, we lived all over Cleveland, you know, Kinsman, Union, all over the place, always moving, Gate, you know, Revere, everywhere, just moving. Finally, we moved to Warrensville, and I was living in Banbury. That's when it was called Banbury. It's called something else now, but I was living in Banbury Circle, and I was there from grade on up to about my sophomore year. I was crushing it on the field, but I was not crushing it in the classroom. All I really cared about was playing. And it was even to the point where I was willing to kind of shift my grades a little bit. Like, we had to turn in them little eligibility cards, man. And I didn't care about school that much. I just wanted to, I like, get out of the hood, get to college, play NFL, change your life. That was all. Well, I started to get in trouble because of grades not being great. And my mother was like, okay, let me give a little backdrop. We moved from Warrensville to Bedford, but I was still at Warrensville because I didn't want to go to Bedford. You know, just to keep it all the way straight, Warrensville was pretty much 99% Black. Bedford was mostly white, and I didn't know anybody in Bedford. So I wanted to stay at Warrensville. So we lived in Bedford. You know, we moved to Sherwood Village. And I'm in Warrensville. And I had to go, you know, get the bus and catch the bus to school. Anyway, I started failing all of that. I was being late all the time because we lived so far away. And then my grades started stuff. So my mother said, you know what? I'm transferring you because you right down the street from Bedford. You going to, and we transferred to Bedford. And I remember meeting with Coach Adakovic, the football coach, who told me, hey, we just had to make a long story short, we had a long conversation about me being a student, a man, and don't make excuses that you don't have your dad and just everything. I love Coach Adakovic. So I started balling for Bedford, man. And obviously, you know, at that time, you know, I set the records for as a running back and all of that. Like, if you go to the stadium now, that number 5 jersey hanging up there, that's mine.
That's so awesome.
So, you know, I go and I get my scholarship to Louisville. And then so I, you know, had a great career at Louisville, ended up playing 6 years pro. But then in 2008, well, now I got to back up even a little bit more before we even get to that.
That's why we need a whole episode.
I know. I'm going to roll, man. As long as nobody can get me, we're going to keep talking. So,
let's go.
So in 2004, so I graduated from Louisville in 01. I didn't get drafted, but I got picked up by the Arena League. And so I'm balling there. And then I see on Animal Planet that you could audition for this reality show. I auditioned for the reality show, and I won the whole thing on Animal Planet. It was called King of the Jungle. And so that's what Acting Buzz bit, because the winner got his own 1-hour special on Animal Planet. So now they throw out all the reality stuff and they start writing scripts for you. And that's the first time I really saw this going down like this. And I said, man, this is kind of cool. They flew me to New Zealand and then to Australia to film this, took care of everything. And then it was on national TV. So when I came back, I'm like, but I still had some football left in me. So I got picked up by the CFL, and then I was ripping it up for the Calgary Stampeders. Then I went to Europe, and I was ripping it up over there. We won a Super Bowl championship over there. So finally in '08, I went to the movies and I saw a very impactful movie that made me think like, I want to give this a shot. And I think I know what I want to do when I'm done playing. And so I auditioned for the role of TJ in the movie Courageous. Got the role. It opened up at number 4. So Hollywood got their eyes on me then. And I got a phone call from an agency in Hollywood saying if I was to come out there, that they would represent me. I thought it was a joke. Prayed about it. It turned out to be legit. I went out there, signed with them. 3 years later, I was in the number 1 movie in America, War Room. From that point on, I'm like, okay, not only was it awesome, but I got there never compromising my faith in Jesus Christ. Never doing anything that would make my faith look bad. Showing that you can make it without leaving Jesus out of the equation. And now I saw that as the mission to just continue doing that. So that's the quick version of what brings me to where I am now. Here I am, 25 films later, still doing it, still doing it God's way, still never compromising, even with all the success that I've had. And that remains my mission. And now I'm looking to help, I'm helping other actors like myself do the same thing. So that's like the quickest version, of it. But, I've written some books. Like I said, Bedford, Cleveland, everybody, y'all got some catching up to do, man, with the things that I've done, But yeah, man, I assure you right now, there's my book right there. It's called
All right, so let's get some links, man. Let's get some links because you're right. In any moment, somebody come knock on the door and you got to go. And man, I can't thank you enough. So I got to ask you 3 things. So number 1, will you come back? Will you come back
to Bedford?
No, for me, for a longer episode.
Oh, absolutely.
We got a lot to cover. We got a lot to cover, my friend. All right. So number 1, that's number 1. All right. 2, what's the links? So your website. You got a lot going on. There's books. There's movies. There's other things.
So you can see everything that's going on with me. www.TCStallings.life. LIFE. And that's you go there, you'll be able to see everything that I'm into. Anybody, like I said, from the 216 from Bedford. If you ever wanted to take some time and catch up with what I'm doing, that's a great place to start. And I say this humbly, you Google TC Stallings and you'll be able to catch up with a lot that the Lord has blessed me to be able to do. And like I said, man, I was not a serious student. I didn't know how I was going to make it out of the hood. Going to Bedford, taking me away from everything that I knew, taking me away from the friends that I knew and having to start all over. I run into some people who really, really, truly cared about me. A school that I love that taught me how to be a student first and changed my life because I started balling. I never wanted to let Coach Zachary down. He became like my father figure. And I met so many cool friends, new folks. And so just everything got elevated when I went there. And, what's funny isn't it? The very first point ever scored at Bedford State, that stadium that they're in right now.
The new one, right?
Was by me.
Come on. Was pass or rush?
It's funny. I played both sides of the ball. I was a starting running back and the starting outside linebacker. We beat Akron St. Vincent, St. Mary, LeBron School.
Yeah. Come on, bro.
We beat their football team 4-0.
Nah.
We won
4.
We won with 2 safeties.
Come on.
I got the first safety.
That's the first points ever scored at Bedford Stadium?
4-0. Akron St. Vincent, St. Mary. That was the very first game ever. Here's the article. I still got the article. The article said, "Cats safely," and they put it in quotation marks, "Cats safely open Bearcat Stadium." And was it in
the Bedford Times Register or the Sun newspaper?
You can look it up. It's crazy. I got the first sack, and the only reason they didn't give me credit for 2 sacks to both of them because I got to him first and I was taking him down. My man Jason Caswell came and finished it off, so they gave me a half sack. But I almost would have scored both sacks by myself. But yeah, first point ever scored at that stadium was by me. But most of my damage was done as a running back, man. That's where I set the records and all of that stuff. And there's a lot of cool facts, man. Me and Holly Berry are the only actors to come out of there that have ever, they can say that their movies were number 1 in America. So for her, she would be the female. For me, I would be the male. There's nobody else. So
how about that? And I tell everybody that I dated Halle Berry just because I went to bed, but it's not.
That ain't gonna work.
I missed Hallie by a year. I did. She was my sister's age, so I missed her by a year. I went to school with her cousin. But anyway, man, we're proud of you guys. And I know if somebody comes to interrupt you, I just want you to know this. We're proud of you. And anybody that comes out of the 216, you were mentioning it. I got, people listen to this. I got 13 my ACT. I was not supposed to be anything, but I think there's a toughness and there's a want to and a fight that Bedford gave us that the classroom could never teach us. And you're doing that now. And we're proud of you. I'm real proud of you. I want to continue to promote everything that you're doing, especially more so now from Bedford, but also I was promoting it before I even knew you. I didn't know till today. You were from Bedford, man.
Here's the funny thing about it. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I experienced so much loss that year. It's so crazy. I'm out in LA. It's funny. I had got invited to screen the movie Just Mercy, which is a really, really good movie if you haven't seen it. But it was a private invite that we got from Kobe Bryant.
Wow.
And so Kobe Bryant was there, and I don't mean like I knew him. I mean like he invited a specific group of people. It was about 60 people. And the firm that was promoting, doing the PR for it, invited us to go.
Wow.
I'm like, because I knew the PR firm. And so just by having those connections, you can get in on stuff like this. So I don't want to paint the picture that he invited us personally, but you had to be approved to get in here. So Kobe Bryant, Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Foxx, Brie Larson, the whole cast was there. So we go there and, Kobe spoke and everything. And we watched the film and we shook everybody's hands. And I posted these pictures on my social media. Bring that up to say, literally 10 days later on a Sunday, he died. In that helicopter crash. And it was just crazy. I'm like, I was just with that dude.
Great.
And then, so, then you start keeping it moving, the pandemic hit, all this death started to happen. And that's when I lost my mother and my grandmother to COVID. And so all of this is happening and then you shut down and you're out in LA and you can't work, you can't, or whatever. And so it's like, man, I got to start reevaluating what I'm doing. Like, Lord, I start praying, like, do you want me here? It can't be business as usual. Like, should I go back to Cleveland to where my family is? Like, what should I do? So I started praying. One thing that came to mind was the one thing I want, the whole reason that I'm acting is like, I want my testimony to be told, like you said, the story, how we grew up. So I did a documentary. I filmed it during the lockdown. That's why this is so near and dear to my heart. It's called 24 Counter, The Story Behind the Run. And the reason that title comes from is because at Louisville, this is a little bit of a slant, but at Louisville, we were playing UK on national television and we beat them in overtime and I'm the one that had the game-winning run. It was this big deal. Everybody got to know me from the football landscape for that, but they don't know the struggle going back to that 12-year-old standing out of Cleveland Municipal Stadium all the way up to that run. So it starts off with that run and then we rewind the run and then we go back to Cleveland. And I tell my story. Well, Bedford is a part of that story. Bedford is featured in the documentary. You see the stadium. You see how I talk about Bedford, my growing up and all of that. So for everybody in the 216, man, and Bedford, this documentary, I just put it out a little while ago, man. It's got 41 5-star reviews. And I'm so excited about that. But if you really want to check it out and see what's going on with me and how I honored Bedford and Cleveland, the very first chapter of the documentary is entitled Cleveland. And I talk about Cleveland and Bedford. So that's on Amazon right now and it's doing really, really well. So I would encourage y'all to check that out. 24 Counter, The Story Behind the Run. But yeah, man, that's me, paying my homage, man, to my hometown, my home city, and definitely my high school, man. So yeah, you will love that if you go check that out.
Can't wait. All right. So, and I want to reciprocate that back to you, however we can, through this podcast, through everything that we do with Unscripted, man. We're in. I'm bought in. We're all in. My Unscripted Media, my business, we're in. We are in your camp. We are linked now, whether you like it or not. So you're going to see a lot from us, but no, I will absolutely, we will promote that. And again, the movie is novacancymovie.com. That comes out on May 9th.
So it's a weird situation for some of y'all not familiar with it, where it's a one-day only event. And they're kind of doing it like that in certain places due to the pandemic. Is like, who's going to really come out and see this thing? Let's kind of protect ourselves on our end. We'll distribute it for one day out in theaters. You come and see it, great. And it's like people wonder, like, why do you have to do that? Movies like the superhero movies and stuff don't do that even with it, because that's a wide interest. People gonna go. But this really awesome movie about this little church in Florida that people may not know. Are people gonna come out? Well, this is the way that they kind of test that out. So it's one night only. But what's happening is when you go and you turn up and you turn out for the film, they start to extend it. So don't count on that happening. But if you show up, it very well could happen to where it gets a longer run in your place. So you go to novacancymovie.com, you click on theaters, throw your zip code in there, and it'll tell you what theater is playing near you. We're at about 770 theaters nationwide right now. And to my family who is still in Cleveland, they hit me up and let me know that they're going to go check it out. And I got, 5 brothers and sisters. So that's going to be really, really cool for them to do that. And my Cleveland family, my Bedford family, that's where my heart is, go and check this out and support me May 9th, and we'll see what happens.
100%. And I've seen the film. I could say that. I've seen the film. I've witnessed it. Let me ask you one more question, because I know you probably got to go. Last question. Where did you get your faith? And then this is probably a whole episode by itself, right. So that's why you got to come back, because I'm going to keep bothering you until you come back again. But just from the Cliff Notes version, where did you get your faith that led you to where you are today?
Well, I always say I got the best version of my mother. Like I said, God bless her. I'm the youngest of 6, and her faith matured throughout her life because she didn't have her faith early on. And so by the time she had me, which, I talk about in my book too, I was actually supposed to be aborted. That's what she was going to do, because she wasn't ready for child number 6. 5 was supposed to be it. And her faith is what kept her from doing it. It was something she wrestled with, but she had got at the strongest point at that point. She sung in the choir, was going to church all the time. And so I was kind of born into that type of person, because I didn't have a Christian household. I just had a Christian mom, and my brothers and sisters kind of did what they wanted to do. A lot of that's different now, but back then, they did what they wanted to do. So I had to figure that out for myself. And my mother set the stage for that by taking me to church. So I went to church right there on 8804 Buckeye Road, man. Blessed Hope Missionary Baptist Church. My pastor was Johnny Twyman. That's kind of where I spent the most of my church years. I went to some other churches, but that's where I spent the most of my church years. And I walked that faith out, as I grew up. But all I had was a belief, really. I didn't understand what it truly meant to let the Lord let Jesus become the Lord of your life. It's one thing to believe in him, but that doesn't mean you're going to follow him and do what he says. The Bible says even the demons believe, but true followers actually allow God to be sovereign, Jesus to be Lord of their life, and the Holy Spirit to lead their life, and the Bible to be the ultimate authority in their life. I didn't learn that until I was like a sophomore in college. So it was just like a steady climb. But throughout my childhood, it was just the respect of believing in God that carried me, and my mother constantly taking me to church. But I matured in my faith in a Bible study my sophomore year. I really started to learn what it truly meant to trade in your will for God's will, and do all those things I just talked about, where, Jesus is truly Lord, and you obeying, and you're praying, and you're reading scripture, not just as some little habit, but it's the real deal. And then so from my sophomore year on out, man, I started to learn I would say at that point, I became a true Christ follower. And so that's like my path. That's a quick version of my path.
Oh, all right. Let me give you one more word. Sunday's Mother's Day. I don't know when people are going to hear this, but Sunday's Mother's Day. My mom passed. You have mentioned yours has as well. What does Mother's Day mean to you?
Mother's Day for me is, I'm reminded of the peace that God gave me the moment she passed away. I was ready to be completely torn up when this happened. But the fact that of my family, I was the strongest believer in Jesus. I knew that there would be 5 other people watching me, as far as my siblings, to see how I handled it. And I didn't have to fake my peace. I knew my mother was going to be with the Lord. So I was able to experience this peace that the Bible talks about, this peace that surpasses all understanding. You can talk about that all you want, But until you actually experience it, it's really hard to really boast about this peace. So right off the bat, I never fell apart. I didn't even cry. And that would have been totally fine and understandable. But the Holy Spirit held me up in such a way where I could say this: the pain that I was feeling from losing my mother was superseded and surpassed by the peace that I experienced with this one thought. Yeah, I might have lost her, but look at what she gained. Which do you want to focus on? Your loss or her gain? She's got Jesus. And she wouldn't come back here if she could. In fact, she feels sorry for me that I'm still here. At the end of the day, the peace that I got from what she gained superseded the pain that I was feeling from what she lost. So what Mother's Day means to me now is the opportunity to keep sharing that true, raw peace that I have, because that will inspire other people to maybe say, wow, I still hurt. So I would love to have what you have. And that's going to point everybody right to the Lord, the Holy Spirit, God, and the peace that he gives for those willing to trust him in that area. So for me, I want to celebrate my mother and focus on what she's gained. Because if I don't, I'm going to be really torn up more so by what I lost. And the fact that No Vacancy opens right after Mother's Day, my mother is my biggest cheerleader, like with everything that I've ever done. She is all over that documentary, by the way, that I told you all about. Man, when No Vacancy come, I know I want to feel her pride that she used to have when she was alive. So I love that they're so close together. But yeah, man, every Mother's Day, the very first one was really hard after she passed.
Right.
But from then on, it's just been this thing where I'm just like, I'm celebrating what she gained and I'm happy for her. And that's what I'm going to roll with every Mother's Day here on out. And I'm going to encourage everybody else who has their faith in Christ to grieve that way. Obviously, if you cry or you're sad, that's okay, because that just means you miss them. But it would be so much more to cry about and be upset about if they didn't know Jesus, because that eternal resting place is a lot different. So that's what it means to me, man. So I'm excited for Sunday. Celebrate my mom.
Well, I always post on socials. I always say this when I reference my mom: save a place for me. I'll be home soon.
Absolutely.
Save a place for me, Mom. I'll be home soon.
Absolutely.
Right. And I know you will too. Man, thank you. Thank you from Bedford. I don't want to speak for a whole city. I don't want to speak for the 216, the whole area code, but thank you. Thank you for representing. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for coming on for the short time we've had today. I am going to hold you to coming back, but thank you for, man, I'm proud of you. You always have our platform, Unscripted, My Unscripted, our business, whatever it might be, man, you always have our platform. I'm really proud of you, and thank you. NoVacancyMovie.com comes out the 9th. But there's a lot of catalog there for you all to check out. Go to his website. What's the website? One more time.
www.T.C. Stallings.life. Life.
There you go. There's a lot there. Man, thank you so much. I know you squeezed me into a very busy day. That means the world to me. You mean the world to me. Thank you for representing. And I look forward to meeting with you again soon.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you so much. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir. I'm Big Bearcat.
Jerseys of Hope is a nonprofit committed to inspiring a sense of community and well-being in hospitals through the donation of athletic jerseys to be worn by patients rooting for their favorite team. In the past 7 years, Jerseys of Hope has given out over 2,000 jerseys to lift the spirits of hospital patients. They have impacted the needy in 4 countries and 11 states. Please visit jerseysofhope.org to learn more. We're so honored to partner with Jerseys of Hope and be a small part of the large impact they make.